One day, Billy's teacher asked him, "I heard your mom had a baby. What did she have?" Billy paused and thought for a moment and said, "I think she had a bicycle." "Now, Billy, you know that your mom didn't have a bicycle. What did she have?" "Maybe it was a tricycle." "Billy, don't stand there and lie to me. We're going to the principal's office right now." The teacher grabbed Billy and escorted him to the principal's office and explained what happened. The principal looked sternly at Billy and said, "Stop lying, Billy. You know your mom didn't have a bicycle or a tricycle. What did your mother have?" Billy looked up, fear in his eyes, and said, "Well, maybe she had a go-kart." That was more than enough. "I'm calling your mother right now." Soon, Billy's mother arrived at the principal's office. It seems that Billy has decided to start telling lies. His teacher asked him what you recently had, and he said a bicycle, then a tricycle, then a go-kart. Billy's mother teared up, and through her sobs, replied to the principal and teacher, "No, sadly I had a miscarriage." Billy sat up straight and said, "I knew that damn thing had wheels." Little Jimmy is in class, and the teacher asks, "If there are 9 birds on a fence and the farmer shoots one, how many birds are left?" Jimmy raises his hand and says, "None, because the rest is startled by the shot and will fly away." To which the teacher says, "Well, Jimmy, the correct answer is 8, but I like the way you think." Jimmy then asks the teacher, "Okay, 3 women are eating ice cream. The first one licks the ice cream, the second sucks the ice cream, the third bites the ice cream. Now, which of these 3 women is married?" The teacher blushes and says a bit unsure, "The one who's sucking it?" To which Jimmy says, "The correct answer is the one with the wedding ring, but I like the way you think." A guy met a childhood pal. "What are you doing with yourself these days?" "I'm a fireman," his old friend replied. "Yeah, my 15-year-old kid wants to be a fireman," said the guy. "Well," said his friend, "if you want some good advice, you've got to install a pole in your house that will go to the basement so your kid can practice, because the hardest thing for a fireman is to jump off into space and catch that pole in the middle of the night." 10 years later, the 2 guys happened to meet again. "Well, did your son become a fireman?" "No," moaned the guy, "but my daughter became a stripper." Jimmy's wife has never had an orgasm in bed with him. It begins to annoy him, so he goes to the doctor and asks for help. The doctor has an odd suggestion that sometimes women are too warm and this impedes the process. So all he has to do is buy a fan and put it in the room and it'll solve the problem. At the hardware store, Jimmy looks at all the fans on offer, but he's a little cheap and cantankerous. He thinks they're all too expensive, and this is some kind of big fan racket that he'll outsmart. He drives back and calls into his neighbor Murphy, explaining the scenario. He brings Murphy into the bedroom with his wife and hands him a tea towel, telling him to stand in the corner and flap the tea towel so that his wife will remain cool. Murphy is confused but goes along with it. Jimmy gets into bed and gets started while Murphy flaps away in the corner. An hour goes by. Nothing, and Murphy's hands are getting tired. Finally, Murphy suggests they swap places to see if that helps. Jimmy and his wife agree, so Murphy gets into the bed and Jimmy flaps the towel. Within 5 minutes, Jimmy's wife is screaming in pleasure with the most intense orgasms she has ever had, and within 10 minutes, they're both flopped on the bed, exhausted. Jimmy walks up to Murphy. "You see that?" he says triumphantly. "That's how you flap a tea towel." An elephant drinking from a stream spots a tortoise lounging on the shore. He grabs it with his trunk and flings it into the jungle. A passing zebra asks, "Why did you do that?" 40 years ago, that very tortoise nipped my tail just for fun," the elephant said. "Wow, 40 years ago. How did you remember that?" "Well, I have turtle recall," replied the elephant. A newly married couple make their way to bed and everything is going well until, "Ooh, oh, look at that! What's wrong with it?" cries the bride. "It's just my junk," says the groom, offended. "Yes, but what's wrong with it? They're not supposed to look like that. It's all twisted." That's what they look like, he replies. Have you ever seen another man's junk? The bride demands. Well, no, but I'm normal. This is what they look like. No, they don't, she tells him. It's warped. There's all grooves around it. It's supposed to be smooth and straight. Long story short, the argument isn't settled and the marriage remains unconsummated. Next day, the newlyweds are walking around town, and the groom announces he needs the bathroom. There's a public gents over there, says the bride. And while you're in there, take a look at the man next to you. See if his is the same as yours. The groom goes in and returns in a few minutes looking very crestfallen. You're right, he says. They are supposed to be smooth and straight, and I found out what I've been doing wrong. What? Well, they all shake theirs dry. I've been wringing mine out. At the pearly gates, an elderly gentleman stands before St. Peter. All you need is one good deed, and we'll let you into heaven, St. Peter says. The old man smiles. No problem. Just a few minutes ago I was driving when I saw a motorcycle gang harassing a young woman at an intersection. I pulled over, marched right up to the biggest, meanest biker. He had to be over 7 feet tall and 400 pounds, and told him that picking on a woman was a cowardly act. I wasn't going to stand for it. St. Peter leans in, intrigued. And then what? Well, the man continues, I reached up, yanked out his nose ring, and gave him a swift kick where it counts, just to drive the point home. St. Peter flips through the book of life, frowning. That's not in here. When exactly did this happen? The old man glances at his watch. Oh, about 5 minutes ago. Father Rabbit, Mother Rabbit, and Baby Rabbit were out for an evening walk at the start of summer when they came across a field of ripening carrots. Baby Rabbit was keen to get amongst them, but Father Rabbit said, Hold on a minute. If these carrots are not ripe, you will get a dreadful tummy ache. I will taste a few to make sure. After trying 3 or 4 carrots, Father Rabbit said, I think they are ripe enough, but one of them was a bit pithy. Baby Rabbit said, Yeth that. Watch me last night. A rich American man had bad luck with women and finally decided to find a mail-order bride from Russia. She arrived a few weeks after his order was made, and they got married and lived happily in a rich Connecticut suburb. Though the poor lady was not very proficient in English, she did manage to communicate with her husband with gestures mostly. The real problem arose whenever she had to go grocery shopping. One day, she went to the butcher and wanted to buy chicken legs. She didn't know how to put forward her request. So, in desperation, she clucked like a chicken and lifted up her skirt to show her thighs. The butcher got the message and gave her the chicken legs. The next day, she needed to get chicken breasts. Again, she didn't know how to tell the butcher, so she clucked like a chicken and unbuttoned her blouse to show the butcher her breasts. The butcher understood again and gave her some chicken breasts. The third day, the poor lady needed to buy sausages. Unable to find a way to communicate this, she brought her husband to the store. Hello, is this the police? Yes, it is. How can we help you? I'm calling to report about my neighbor, Bob. He's hiding cocaine inside his firewood. Thank you very much for the call, sir. The next day, police officers descend on Bob's house in great numbers. They search the house and then go out to the shed where the firewood is kept. Using axes, they bust open every piece of firewood, but they find no cocaine. They swear at Bob and leave. The phone rings at Bob's house. Hey, Bob, did the cops come? Yeah. Did they chop up your firewood? Yep. Happy birthday, mate. An elderly gentleman and a young woman, total strangers, found themselves assigned to the same sleeping compartment on a transcontinental train. Though a bit awkward at first, they both settled in for the night. He in the upper bunk, she in the lower. Around 1:00 a.m., the old man leaned over and gently woke the woman. I hate to bother you, he said, but I'm terribly cold. Would you mind reaching into the cupboard and grabbing me an extra blanket? The woman smiled slyly. I have a better idea, she whispered. Just for tonight, let's pretend we're married. The old man's eyes lit up. "Wow, that sounds amazing," he said excitedly. "Great," she replied. "Get your own damn blanket." A soldier, out of breath and clearly in a panic, runs up to a nun. "Sister, please, can I hide under your skirt? I'll explain later." The nun, startled but compassionate, nods. "Of course, my child." A few seconds later, 2 military police officers run up. "Sister, have you seen a soldier come this way?" The nun calmly points off into the distance. "Yes, officers. He ran that way." As soon as they're gone, the soldier crawls out from under her skirt, brushing off his uniform. "Sister, I can't thank you enough. You see, I just didn't want to be sent to Iraq." The nun gives a knowing nod. "I completely understand." The soldier, slightly embarrassed but curious, adds, "I hope you don't mind me saying, sister, but you've got a great pair of legs." The nun smiles slyly and says, "Had you looked a little higher, you'd have seen a great pair of balls. I don't want to go to Iraq either." Several years ago, Andy was sentenced to prison. During his stay, he got along well with the guards and all his fellow inmates. The warden knew that, deep down, Andy was a good person. So the warden made arrangements for the inmate to learn a trade while doing his time. Some 3 years later, Andy was recognized as one of the best carpenters in the local area. Often he would be given a weekend pass to do odd jobs for citizens in the community, and he always reported back to prison by early Sunday evening. Andy was a model inmate. Then one day, the warden considered remodeling his kitchen, but he lacked the skills to build a set of kitchen cupboards and a large countertop. So he called Andy into his office and asked him if he could do the job. To the warden's surprise, Andy simply refused to help. "But you're an expert, Andy, and I really need your help," said the warden. "Gosh, warden, I'd really like to help you. But counterfeiting is what got me into prison in the first place." I proposed my Russian girlfriend, and she said yes. For the wedding, my whole family and friends flew over to her hometown of Moscow. It was a beautiful ceremony. However, I did find some things strange. For instance, the priest never said, "You may now kiss the bride," but I just assumed it was purely an American thing and didn't mind. Later, during the reception, we were both starving and decided to head over to the buffet to get food. On the way, we passed the drink table, where about 6 people were waiting to get a fruity drink from a bowl. As we passed, they all said in unison, "You may now kiss the bride." My wife got giddy and gave me a big kiss, which I of course returned. As we walked away, I asked, "Why did they tell us to kiss and not the priest?" My wife answered, "In Soviet Russia, the punchline tells you." 4 friends who hadn't seen each other in 30 years are reunited at a party. After several drinks, one of the men had to use the restroom. Those who remained talked about their kids. The first guy said, "My son is my pride and joy. He started working at a successful company at the bottom of the barrel. He studied economics and business administration and soon began to climb the corporate ladder, and now he's the president of the company. He became so rich that he gave his best friend a top-of-the-line Mercedes for his birthday." The second guy said, "Darn, that's terrific. My son is also my pride and joy. He started working for a big airline, then went to flight school to become a pilot. Eventually, he became a partner in the company, where he owns the majority of its assets. He's so rich that he gave his best friend a brand new jet for his birthday." The third man said, "Well, that's terrific. My son studied in the best universities and became an engineer. Then he started his own construction company and is now a multimillionaire. He also gave away something very nice and expensive to his best friend for his birthday, a 30,000 square foot mansion." The 3 friends congratulated each other just as the fourth returned from the restroom and asked, "What are all the congratulations for?" One of the 3 said, "We were talking about the pride we feel for the successes of our sons. What about your son?" The fourth man replied, "My son is gay and makes a living dancing as a stripper at a nightclub." The 3 friends said, "What a shame. What a disappointment." The fourth man replied, No, I'm not ashamed. Why should I be? He's my son and I love him very much. Besides, he hasn't done too bad either. His birthday was 2 weeks ago, and he received a beautiful 30,000 square foot mansion, a brand new jet, and a top-of-the-line Mercedes from his 3 boyfriends. The class of 1950 gets together for their class reunion. Not many people are left, but 2 of the 10 people to attend were Harry, an 88-year-old widower, and Esther, an 87-year-old divorcee. Over the course of the evening, they had a great time chatting about old times and their families. They each felt a real connection, and by the time the night was out, Harry had proposed and Esther has happily accepted. The next morning, Harry woke up and was frustrated to realize that he couldn't remember Esther's answer to his proposal. Embarrassed, he picks up the phone to call her. "Hello, Esther. I'm so sorry, but my memory isn't what it used to be. Last night, when I asked you to marry me, did you say yes or no?" "I said yes!" Esther exclaimed excitedly. "And I'm so glad that you called, because for the life of me, I couldn't remember who asked." This morning, at 83 years old, I rolled into the Starbucks drive-thru. No rush, just enjoying the day. Behind me, a young woman, clearly in a hurry, starts honking like she's late to a CEO meeting. Hand gestures, deep sighs. You know the type. Now, I could have gotten annoyed, but instead, I smiled. And when I got to the first window, I paid for her coffee and mine. The barista gave me a little grin, bet she told the girl. Because when we moved up, little Miss Impatient peeked out, waved, and mouthed, "Thank you." A little embarrassed, a little surprised, maybe learning something. But hold on. I got to the second window, took both drinks, and her muffin too, and drove off, real slow. She had to loop all the way back and reorder. The airport buzzed with chaos, crying babies, long security lines, and one man melting down over a lost neck pillow. In the middle of it all sat Bruno, a large, gentle dog with the calm demeanor of a monk. At his side was Daniel, his visibly stressed-out owner, who looked like he was barely holding it together. Daniel was relocating overseas, ready for a fresh start, a bold new chapter. But there was one problem: Bruno. Due to his size, health, and perhaps the soulful gaze that screamed, "I dare you to put me in cargo," Bruno wasn't allowed in the hold. Daniel clung to him like a parent at a kindergarten drop-off, voice cracking. "I can't leave him behind." If this had been a movie, it would have been Daniel's Oscar-winning scene. The airline staff huddled, exchanging uncertain glances. They'd seen emotional support animals of every shape and size, from hamsters to a peacock. Yes, really. But Bruno? Bruno was different. With a resigned sigh, one staff member said, "We'll figure something out." And just like that, Bruno was upgraded, from cargo to cabin. Seat 12A. There were a few raised eyebrows at first. A dog in the cabin? But Bruno calmly climbed into his seat, gave the cabin a dignified glance, and immediately won everyone over. A kind woman handed him her neck pillow. A man from first class sent back a filet mignon for the gentleman in 12A. Even the pilot made a cheerful announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special passenger on board today. Bruno, who's already behaving better than at least 6 of you." Throughout the flight, Bruno didn't bark or fidget. He rested his head on Daniel's lap and became the embodiment of good manners and emotional support. By the time they landed, even the skeptics were smitten. Daniel leaned down and whispered, "We did it, buddy," eyes glistening with gratitude. And so, with the help of a compassionate crew and a lovable dog who won the hearts of an entire cabin, a man and his best friend crossed borders and made memories. Bruno's still waiting on his frequent flyer miles, but he'd settle for another filet mignon. Peter the Penguin had always dreamed of visiting Italy. He loved the food, the music, the scooters, everything Italian. After years of saving his penguin pennies, he finally booked his dream vacation. To make it the full Italian experience, he rented a shiny Vespa and set off to tour the country. On the third day, while cruising through the streets of Florence, disaster struck. The Vespa sputtered, coughed, and spilled oil all over the road. Disheartened, Peter waddled the broken scooter over to a local mechanic. "Come back in a little while," the mechanic said. "I'll take a look." Peter nodded, then waddled off to cheer himself up the only way a penguin could, with a giant Italian gelato. He returned 20 minutes later, his face absolutely smeared with melting vanilla ice cream. The mechanic looked up from the Vespa and said, "Well, I found the problem. Looks like you blew a seal." Peter wiped his beak with his flipper and said, No, it's just ice cream." A hunter was walking through the jungle and found an enormous dead animal with a boy standing beside it. Amazed, he asked, "Did you kill that?" The boy said, "Yes." The hunter asked, "How could a little bloke like you kill a huge beast like that?" The boy said, "I killed it with my club." The astonished hunter asked, "How big is your club?" The boy replied, "There's about 60 of us." Last night, I tried to sneak into the kitchen like a ninja. The mission, ice cream. The challenge, get there without waking anyone. Easy, right? Wrong. Step 1. I got out of bed like a silent shadow and immediately stepped on a Lego. My whisper scream was so intense I think I summoned spirits. Step 2. Made it to the hallway. Forgot how loud the floorboards are at night. Every step sounded like I was playing the drums with my feet. I froze like a statue every 3 seconds, just in case someone heard. Step 3. Finally reached the kitchen. Opened the freezer like a safecracker. The light inside turned on like a spotlight from heaven. I was basically on stage. Cue dramatic background music. Step 4. Grabbed the ice cream tub and dropped the spoon. Clang! That spoon hit the floor like a cymbal in a marching band. At that exact moment, my cat decided to jump out of nowhere like a flying ninja, and I swear I saw my soul leave my body. Step 5. Gave up. Ate 2 bites straight from the tub while crouched like Gollum behind the kitchen counter. Heard someone coming. Panicked. Ran back to bed with the speed of a raccoon in a trash can raid. Next morning? Did you hear weird noises last night? Me. Nope, must have been the wind. Must have been the